messages. In this case, I think that foreign policy will loom very large because I just don't think he's going to win on the economy.
No, he can't. And in fact, this leads me to a column you wrote about our petulant president. And it's a remarkable look back, Victor Davis Hanson. This was for Pajamas Media, your Like a Dog column, which is over at victorhanson.com as well. He is proving to be the most peevish president we've ever personally experienced. Who knows what they were like in the 19th century, but he set a new standard.
Yeah, I didn't want to be too sympathetic, but I mean, if you and I had been in prep school and been told that we were brilliant, and then we went to Occidental, and then we went to Columbia, then we went to Harvard Law, and we went to Chicago Law School, and we went to state legislature, and at every step of the way, we didn't have to produce results. We don't have to publish an article when a Harvard Law Review editor, or we're a Chicago Law lecturer, and we don't have to even do anything and be offered a tenure-track job. And then in the Senate, he had no record of accomplishment. I think what we're watching is sort of a bewilderment on the part of Obama. He's sort of saying, what are you changing the rules for? Nobody's ever asked me to produce before. Harry Reid and Joe Biden said I was an African American that made mainstream liberal America feel comfortable and good about themselves. Isn't that enough? And I think that's what we're watching in a very embarrassing way when you hear a president say, talk like a dog.
That was a remarkable statement. And you also point out in this column that he's elevated his critics, which, of course, is an incentive for them to continue their criticism. He really does not know how to be president in the way that George W. Bush intuitively, as you point out, also his intuitive reaction on 9/11 might have made this much more understandable for us. But President Bush intuitively understood you just don't get down from the Oval Office into the dirt.
Absolutely. What Michael Moore and Keith Olbermann said about Bush was unprintable, but he never addressed them by name. And he's created Bonnier, he's made him into something that he wasn't. He was just a congressman that might be at some future date a speaker. And there's that famous letter from David Axelrod to Obama during the 2004 Senate campaign when he said, I guess it was 2006 Senate campaign, when he said, you've really made Alan Keyes into something much larger than he is, because you have to reply and feel petulant about every little slight. And I think it's just he's not experienced any criticism of all, and he equates criticism with almost blasphemy, if I could use that word.
In an interview we did at the end of 2008, looking forward to the presidency of Barack Obama, you predicted his nemesis would be just this ego of his, and it sure does seem to be coming true, Victor Davis Hanson, at every turn.
I was very worried when I saw the victory column speech in Berlin, the fake Greek columns at the convention, and then that terrible Vero Possumus Latinate pre-presidential seal, and then that lingo about the seas are going to stop rising, the planet's going to cool. I thought, this guy really does have a messianic sense about himself, and it's been egged on by the media. And then when Evan Thomas, I think it was, or John Meacham, said that he was a god, Newsweek editor, he was set up for a classical Sophoclean fall, and that's what we're watching. And he believed this about himself, and he never sat down with any introspection and said, Barack, have you ever done anything? Do you have signature legislation? Do you have an all-important scholarly article? Have you written a book other than about yourself? The answer was no, no, no. And yet, here we are, and the country collectively now has to pay the price.
Now, I had a debate on Monday night in Houston, Victor Davis Hanson, with Howard Dean about which way this election was going to break, because it hasn't decided yet. It's certainly built in a Republican conservative kind of direction, but it could either crescendo and swell in that direction, or it could recede. What do you see happening, and why do you see it happening over the next 7 weeks?
I think it's going to break more for the Republicans, because I think there's a simmering anger that the polls haven't picked up. I think a lot of people don't want to prematurely give up on somebody they voted for. They feel that it's awfully early to have a president below 40%. Some people don't want to be tagged with a sense of racism. But there's a sense now that transcends even the issues, even the problems with the economy, the health care, all of these crazy programs that he's trying to stuff down our throats, the foreign policy embarrassments. But there's a sense that when he gets on that podium and he starts in that cadence with hope and change, I've watched the audience of all different backgrounds. They just get tired of it. They said, you know what, enough already. And so I think there's a collective sense that his former charisma that was supposed to carry through a very unpopular agenda that most people didn't want is not there now. And if the agenda is bad and people sour on Obama the person, I think it's a double whammy. So I think that people are just tired. They want to see substance, and they don't want to have a petulant president start to be swarmy and this hope and change and then get very sensitive when you don't buy into it.